What's up, guys? Today I have David from V Systems. We're going to talk about what the project is all about. We're going to talk about the founder of the project, very interesting guy, and just chat about crypto in general. So please welcome David Jefferys.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Very, very excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, super stoked to have you. And this has been a long time coming. We've had this in the planning phase for a while. So for folks on this YouTube channel and on the podcast that may not know anything about V Systems, could you give a brief, like the elevator pitch for V Systems and what you guys do?
Yeah, sure. V Systems is a native blockchain platform project, more an infrastructure play.
Mhm.
So you can think of V Systems as competing, in the same bucket as Ethereum, Tron, EOS, Cardano, some of these other infrastructure blockchain plays.
Mhm.
And kind of the big picture is, we want to be the platform. All of these infrastructure plays want to be the platform where there's a lot of developer activity, and a lot of side chains and blockchain projects thrive.
Right. Gotcha. That's awesome. And so having gotten the chance to dig into your documentation and your website, looks that a lot of the plays that you guys are making are in making blockchain infrastructure easier for developers to implement, and also trying to provide a platform that offers the scalability that people are looking for with your SPoS, your proof of stake variety. Could you give like a brief overview of what SPoS is all about?
So SPoS is a brand new consensus mechanism that was invented by our chief architect, Sonny King. It's kind of a twist on proof of stake. And we can come back to this a little later, but Sonny
Hmm.
King actually is the inventor of the proof of stake consensus mechanism. He
Yep.
rolled that out when he launched PureCoin in 2012. Um,
Right. Awesome. Yeah. And look, like Sonny King, for people who may not know, he's actually quite a legend in the space, as at least as far as engineers go and people who have been working on protocol. As you said, he invented proof of stake. He's often credited with the invention of multiple different things within the blockchain space. So, from the perspective of Sonny King as the founder and sort of the inspiring brain behind V Systems, what is the play going forward for you guys Q4 2019 and into 2020 to make this protocol competitive in the increasingly competitive space that we're in?
Just last month, we rolled out our smart contract platform called
Mhm.
Euclid. And Euclid is a set of non-Turing complete smart contracts that allow application developers to easily launch their own token. And so we're
Okay.
really going for ease of use. You can download the VSys hot wallet, and one of the buttons you'll see there is token. One of the
Mhm.
boxes you'll see is token, and anyone will be able to create their own token on top of VSys by just pushing a couple buttons in the wallet GUI. So our,
Awesome.
our goal is really to lower the barrier of entry to people creating tokens. I'm sure you're aware of creating tokens on top of Solidity, and while,
Yep.
while it's easier than it's ever been, it still maybe isn't easy enough.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in creating your own token on Ethereum, obviously there are standards, the ERC20 standard, and there are a lot of templates out there for you to build those contracts out. But if you want to make any customizations whatsoever, you want to, add functionality, you really have to understand how the Solidity is put together. And so there is definitely some overhead in terms of building your own token project on most platforms, but
Mhm.
especially Ethereum. So in terms of V Systems current implementation, you guys are in mainnet, so I mean that's positive. I know there are a lot of companies who have products and they have code, they have a GitHub repository that's pretty active, but stuff just isn't in mainnet, and so people can't really evaluate progress on a project just from test nets. So what's currently in mainnet right now for V Systems, and what's to come, in the near future into that mainnet deployment?
And so the big vision is blockchain database, blockchain cloud database, the
Hmm.
blockchain platform where in theory a million side chains could thrive. That's kind of
Hmm.
the grand vision that we're working towards. And then right now it's all about the laying the infrastructure. It's all about the team developing partnerships, developing exchange listings to get that liquidity, and really just
Mhm.
making the rounds in the crypto space and playing the crypto game, and getting these network effects that are so important in this infrastructure phase.
Awesome. And so you mentioned, cloud database, blockchain database. Can you explain that concept a little bit? Because I was reading through that on your website and trying to understand the structure you guys are going for. But I'd love to hear it from you.
So right now, a typical developer would need to kind of build his backend on Google or Amazon or some of these other backend database providers.
Hmm.
Where in the future, we think that blockchain is going to eat a lot of this kind of environment, and a lot of developers will end up kind of pivoting and running their back end on a distributed ledger, a distributed blockchain database in the cloud for scalability, for ease of use, and stuff like that.
All right, gotcha. So your target implementation would be to create a network for multiple institutions to run their data through, basically.
Mhm.
Right. So basically, you're taking what is currently a really fragmented, siloed data storage ecosystem on cloud, like AWS, Microsoft Azure, et cetera, and to condense that into what is effectively one large distributed network.
But that's sort of like the long-term
Right.
vision. Like even the plans are kind of getting laid out for that.
Right.
In the immediate term, I think you're going to see V systems kind of have a good reputation with easy token creation.
Hmm.
One of the you mentioned features in some templates and some of the Solidity or Ethereum contracts.
Right.
One thing that's pretty exciting on VSys is, for the first time, anyone who creates a token will have the ability to do, similar to the financial markets, you'll be able to do a stock split or a reverse stock split,
Right.
with your token. And so what that would do is it could kind of help smooth out some of the pricing jumps. For example, if Bitcoin is pretty expensive, $10,000 a coin, you could do a 10-to-1 split where all of a sudden everyone gets 10 times the coins, the value of the coin drops to 1,000, and everyone has the same relative wealth. Kind of
Mhm.
the other way around, some of these tokens are trading for fraction of a pennies, makes it difficult to participate in that ecosystem. So you could do a reverse split there and kind of go 10-to-1 the other way and get the price back to a penny, something that makes more sense to the average person.
Right.
So
Right.
we're specifically focused on the DeFi. The tagline for V Systems is "Re-architect blockchain, decentralized finance," and we want to be the bridge to that between the old financial world and the new kind of emerging crypto world. Our goal is to kind of be the bridge. And we've had a pretty exciting month in September, and we announced a partnership with XVPN to tokenize some of their products. Um,
Awesome.
and
So what are you guys tokenizing with XVPN?
so it was a collaboration to do. It's called Tachyon, and it's sort of a new layer, for the internet that still has to get fleshed out. But the important thing about XVPN is there's 50 million users. They've
Hmm.
one of the top 20 apps in the world, and doing these kind of partnerships with these traditional kind of apps, I think is huge, because potentially you're talking about getting VSys in the hands of millions of people, and we really haven't seen a blockchain that has provided that much utility, where you've got millions of people earning a token.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think the challenge there is it's always a balance of figuring out how to show the value of what your blockchain protocol offers, but also not make people feel like people shouldn't be on a mobile app and be like, wow, I know this is on a blockchain because it's slow or because I need three confirmations before I can do the next thing.
Hmm.
Those, or I need to go through a clunky signing process for, with my private key that's on my phone. And if I wipe my phone, my account's gone, right? So like those are the things that are a challenge because you want to be able to convey the value of a blockchain and the value of your platform, but you also don't want people to feel it in the user experience necessarily.
Hmm.
So when it comes to this XVPN partnership, I'm really curious to see how the value of V systems in this ecosystem can be conveyed without making people think like, wow, I wish this wasn't here, because it's a challenge I think every blockchain developer is facing right now.
Yeah, that easy use and kind of utility is really the name of the game. I think after the infrastructure phase. Right now we're in the infrastructure phase, but slowly,
Mhm.
hopefully, this industry emerges from the infrastructure phase and starts having real utility and touching the
Mhm.
lives of people all around the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I did get the chance to test out um, the deployment scripts and processes for the V Systems core code that you guys have out there on GitHub for the Linux implementations. So I mean, those things worked, and it worked pretty quickly. And I did see online there were a couple of folks that have done like code reviews in the past, and they felt that at that time also, like early 2019, that the code was in pretty good shape then too. So it's good to see that protocol wise stuff's being added pretty consistently and it's active, but it's not
Hmm.
breaking old functionality and breaking deployment scripts, because I think that's the hardest thing. I come from a development background, so whenever I talk to a new project, I try and just run two or three tutorials or scripts or things that they have out there on GitHub. And I can't tell you the number of times I go on and those things just don't work at all.
Hmm.
And they haven't been updated since 2017 or 2018. And when the main goal is to get a good protocol out there, but if the protocol is great and no one knows how to use it and no one can use it, it doesn't help you very much.
Hmm.
So on that front, do you guys have plans to potentially open up like a developer academy, or to set up outreach events for developers to get folks on board, especially if you're coming up with your own scripting language? I'm sure training is going to be a big factor for you guys.
Yeah, that's a huge part of the plan is developer outreach and developer support.
Mhm.
Definitely one of my core jobs. And we're still kind of fleshing out the whole strategy, but
Mhm.
we've got a pretty exciting event in Singapore in mid-November. V Systems is the diamond sponsor of the big Coin Market Cap conference there, and so
Okay.
that's going to be a great event to kind of showcase not only V Systems but Sonny King to the broader crypto world. They're calling it the Anonymous Dialogue, and it's going to be one of the main kind of keynotes or one of the main focuses of the event. Sonny King, who's our chief architect, pseudonymous
Mhm.
developer, sort of like Satoshi. No one knows his true identity. He's going to have an anonymous dialogue with the CEO of CoinMarketCap, who is also a private individual.
Mhm.
I don't think his public persona has ever been out in the world.
Right.
So the detail, I don't even know the details, but they're going to be there on stage in some form or another. So that's pretty exciting and should help raise some awareness, about Sonny King and hopefully attract developers and projects to take a look at these systems.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think anyone who has followed Peercoin in the past, and projects like that, where Sonny King was involved and founded, I think it's interesting for those folks, even though they're probably like, well, I wish he was still with Peercoin, what have you, but to see what's being worked on now, because I think you see that with other folks in the space, like Dan Larimer from EOS or EOS. You have an idea and you try and implement it, but once a protocol gets big enough and people start using it, if you want to pivot and change directions, or you want to make a big change, it's a lot harder to do that. So sometimes you have to jump and start from scratch, take what you've learned from the last project that you built, and do it over again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you nailed it there. I've followed Dan since the early days of
Mhm.
BitShares, and I worked at Steemit for 2 years doing business development and
Awesome.
developer outreach support. And so I saw
Mhm.
Dan go through that process. I
Mhm.
saw I saw him want to make BitShares inflationary. Once you launch one of these decentralized projects, it sort of
Mhm.
gets out of your control. And
Yeah.
people do criticize sometimes the project jumping, but there's different phases of projects, and a guy like Dan, he's good at building ships, and
Mhm.
he builds great blockchain ships.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, there are always things that you can criticize about people in the space, and of course, we live in a time where criticism is in no shortage whatsoever because it's everyone's so accessible. But I totally agree with you. I think you look at it in like the most basic sense. Moving from one thing that you built to another is probably one of the coolest things that you can do in some respects because you're giving a decentralized platform the room to breathe and perform the way that it's supposed to. If people want to make that change, right? If the whole community wants to make a change to the core protocol, they can do that.
Mhm.
But as soon as you start having a founder stand in and say, hey, we're going to make this change because I think it's the best thing for the protocol, and everyone just does it, it's no longer a decentralized platform.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of little like double-edged sword things like that in crypto where people would criticize Sonny King or Dan Larimer or someone like that for jumping ship when I think really it's just respecting the core ethos of these cryptocurrency projects at its core.
For sure, right on.
Awesome. Yeah, and so I think pulling on the Sonny King thread a little bit, what is it like for you to work for or with someone that is pseudo anonymous, someone that's obviously probably insanely busy and operates at that CTO like cloud architect, system architect level? What has that been like for you?
I've had a few interactions over some chat channels with Sonny King, but not too
Hmm.
much. He's
Right.
he's kind of the high level vision
Yeah.
guy. I do work closely with the technical associate that's part of the North American Visas team, and
Hmm.
he's had a lot more engagement with Sonny, more on
Hmm.
kind of the future blockchain database, potential sidechain platform that
Hmm.
that kind of not only these systems but everyone else is sort of working towards. So they've had some back and forth, and it's been fun to kind of hear from him. Some of the back and forth with Sonny there. But it's been really exciting learning kind of I call it almost the untold story because I didn't quite know the whole story of Sonny King until I started until I got into V Systems and met the team and flew to Hong Kong and spent a week with the team in Korea, and then it kind of it's a really nice story, and I think it's gonna play well over time because the proof of stake really it's where the whole industry is moving. Um,
Hmm.
I saw a stat. I think there's something like the proof of stake economy is something like 25 billion. It will be like up to $25 billion by the end of the year. And you really have all the main platforms in the space sort of moving that way. You've got
Right.
Larimer's twist on it with the delegated proof of stake. You've got Ethereum, eventually trying to make that pivot to proof of stake. Cosmos, another top chain, is doing their
Hmm.
staking validator thing. So really, his invention of proof of stake is something that is right up there, I think, with Satoshi's invention of Bitcoin because it's just going to touch the whole space and kind of the space is evolving from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there are pros and cons, and there are weaknesses and strengths for every consensus mechanism and incentive and disincentive structure out there. Proof of stake is still it's still young. Like it's still a pretty new idea. And there are so many different twists and flavors and things people are doing to modify it and try and capture the benefits of what proof of work offers, which is really cost of attack and security by massive hash rate, more, in a sense.
Mhm.
And so it's really interesting to see that happening. I'm very curious. I think 2020, in probably the latter half of 2020, I think is going to be the proof of stake arms race. It's going to be whose proof of stake chain after this 2018 2019 build cycle is working the way that they intended it to, and where are we going to go from here?
Mhm.
Because I think we have like a sleeping giant mode going on. We've got a lot of lesser known projects and new projects that are coming out, and they say we have a new proof of stake flavor. Then you also have the bigger protocols like Ethereum coming forward with their proof of stake implementations, and it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out.
And so we can touch on some of the benefits of the supernode proof of stake, the consensus
Hmm.
mechanism that secures V systems. At the core, it's very egalitarian. And any individual coin holder, has the option to lease or to mint their, even as small as a couple of dollars of tokens to
Hmm.
one of the 15 supernodes. The blockchain is capable of scaling to 60 supernodes, and
Hmm.
that means it would be one block every second, and the
Right.
blockchain would be a clock. Right now, it's 15 supernodes, and there's one block every 4 seconds. But the supernodes compete with each other for the stake
Hmm.
from the leasee, and they share about 80% of the block reward back with the leasee. And so,
Hmm.
in some of these other systems like EOS and Steem, you've got the indirect, sell your vote and get some of the block reward in theory by selling the vote.
Hmm.
But here it's direct, and so everyone directly participates in the block reward and the growth of the network.
Right. So, like you said, there's basically 60 slots, if you will, for these super nodes that are in charge of block production. Is that a correct
Mhm.
statement?
Yeah,
And
60
so
potential spots, 15 are
15 build right
15,
now.
yeah, built right now into
Right. So that's what equates to that's 60 divided by 15. That's 4-second block time because it goes in round robin, right?
and they're
It's
fixed.
like,
They're fixed. 1, 2. So I thought that was an interesting
okay.
twist too. They're fixed.
Okay. Gotcha. So then in an environment, like you said, where all 60 supernode slots are filled, right? That's a 1-second block time because you have in a 60-second window, which is the 60 slots, you have one block producer per second
Hmm.
proposing and creating a block. Is
Hmm.
that correct?
Yep.
Cool. So that's the basic structure. Now, one thing I think a lot of people are curious about is what steps are taken to maintain that egalitarian nature and the as much decentralization as possible. Because I know people are critical of the block producer structure in the DPoS implementation for EOS or EOS
So
because
I grew up
easy to
around.
abuse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up around bit shares and
Hmm.
very serious student esteem. I worked for the company for almost 2 years, and I really don't. I have a hard time understanding the criticisms because
Hmm.
consensus is effectively achieved, and it's achieved at a leaner and meaner and faster rate.
Hmm.
Um, so it just doesn't jive with me. I don't understand. I really don't understand the criticism.
Yeah. No, I think in terms of I think with bit shares and Steam, for me at least, I've heard a lot less criticism that's at least in volume. I think a lot of criticism is being posed towards EOS, and I think part of that is the massive funding and ICO. I think puts extra pressure on a protocol like that to do everything perfectly when it's just not a reasonably attainable goal.
Yeah, so
But
maybe
I think
there's some unrealistic expectations.
yeah, but I also think from I don't from a mathematics perspective and a consensus perspective, don't I personally don't like the idea of 21 as the number because I think you can achieve the same goal and also box out some of the big dominant parties where you're like sort of self-feeding um, powerful pools by increasing the number and then changing the incentive structure a little bit. So I don't think it's a flawed top to bottom plan or structure. I just think it could be improved. But
Mhm.
therein lies the challenge because I'm not going to speak on behalf of Dan Larimer because I don't know. But I feel he probably has an issue with how it's evolved because he doesn't have control over the parties that are involved in that block production process and the delegation process.
Mhm.
He may want to make a change and they can't. And so there's rumblings of, okay, Dan Larimer is probably going to leave and go do something else. And that may be why. So it's hard for us to speculate on what's going on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
But that's the thing though. This is the period that we're in. Like there are like tribes for every project out there. And there's always a motive for why people would criticize, but there's also criticism due for every project out there. No one's gotten this right yet. If they had, we wouldn't be having this conversation, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I look at the supernodes or the block producers as
Mhm.
sort of, it's a lucrative, it's a job.
Yeah.
It's a job, and it's a job that people get paid to do. And if they, if one of the block producers or one of the supernodes tried to cheat, the system would pick it up and they would get voted out, and they would burn their reputation, and they would lose that lucrative job
Mhm.
forever. So the incentives are sort of aligned,
Mhm.
just to keep the system going one block at
Yeah.
a time.
And in reading your paper, I think I like the more direct approach of saying you're going to lease your, like, every user can effectively lease their stake to a producer. My main
Mhm.
question though was, how is a super node candidate, so a block producer candidate, evaluated? How are they measured? So how do they win that position?
Right now, they're industry players that you know we have built
Hmm.
relationships with. Um, BitThumb, BitThumb Global, OK Pool, Staking Korea. You can find the list at vsysrate.com,
Hmm.
Coco Wallet, um, ZB Group, Poby Pool, Primecoin, and so these are existing relationships, pretty much all in the crypto industry.
Got it.
One really cool thing. I'm not sure if you got a chance to see, but there's a hot and a cold wallet for V systems,
Hmm.
and it's got the coolest offline. It's called cold minting, and so you download the cold wallet. Um, you can perform the offline transaction signing from the cold wallet completely off the internet,
Hmm.
and lease or mint your tokens all completely from the cold wallet. So it's really cool setup. It's the best kind of cold minting offline signing that I've seen. On some of the other, like Ethereum, it's a little clunky,
Hmm.
and some of the other ones you really have to only get into the command line to do that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. So it's well abstracted in this case. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to try that out. Um, and going back to the super node structure. So you guys have 15 industry players that you've been working with that believe in the project, obviously. From here, and as you start building this ecosystem out, I know you said, you know, getting the liquidity, getting people to start using it, that's part of the goal. When you get there, how will, so if a community person, like, let's just say I wanted to be a super node and I wanted to throw my hat in the ring, how would I be measured as a candidate against one of those existing 15?
Mm, you would need to, I believe, you would need to accumulate about 90 million visas of visas coin stake, which is 10 to 15 to 20 million dollars worth of stake.
Hmm.
Um, and so you would have to lobby to the large shareholders, or other people that you know. And so these things kind of develop and kind of unfold over time.
Right. Yeah. So I would presume then that in the, I guess in the longer term, as you get more players on board and you're trying to get users in that can challenge for these spots, there'll have to be some sort of program or some sort of campaign to give people a shot at getting a spot in here. Or will the cost of entry, the barrier to entry and being in the millions, reduce around that period of time? Like, do you guys have plans for that so that the existing players can't just occupy those spots and there's a real challenge
I mean,
for the roles?
there's a handful of moving variables there. Like the
Hmm.
price is one. If the price goes low, technically the cost of entry is lower.
Hmm.
If the super nodes expand from 15 to 30 to 45 to 60,
Hmm.
in theory you would need less. You would need to acquire less. Assuming the cost is relative, you would need to acquire less stake.
Right. Cool. Yeah. So I mean, that I'm just trying to work through the semantics of moving as you move towards more and more people using and people wanting to take on that role and how they'd go about doing that. So that's interesting. So then I think the last question regarding supernodes that I had is, what type of technical capability and what type of hardware, if any, do you need to be a supernode?
Um, I I I I don't have that answer offhand. I did help a couple people set it up, but there weren't too many hurdles there.
Okay.
It was, it was some command line stuff. There's some special blockchain operations that required, some fees to be paid. Um,
Right.
but I can get back to you with some more specifics there.
Cool. Yeah, that would be awesome. I think arguably the most interesting thing to look at with every platform or protocol that you can see out there is how are they implementing the consensus mechanism, how are they incentivizing good behavior, disincentivizing bad, and especially in proof of stake, how are they making these lucrative roles like block production roles available and accessible by you know individuals, if not individuals, smaller pools and groups of people that are just in the community and don't represent a larger organization. So it's a very tough problem for people to solve from a protocol level,
Mhm.
because naturally those with the most resources are almost always the ones who have an easier time of getting into these roles. And I think that's the problem that we're all trying to solve for,
Mhm. And so you would
naturally.
have to run. It's called a contend operation, and so you would run a specific blockchain operation, from your side, from the command line, and that would put you in the running to become a supernode that has the ability to accumulate some least staked thesis.
Gotcha. So I think my last question for you in general is in in terms of developer activity, in terms of developers wanting to get involved and learn about vsys and to start playing around with the non-Turing complete scripting language you guys have in your framework. Where can folks go? Do you guys have a group of technical resources that people could reach out to, or a web page where people can learn?
Yeah, our main web page is v.systems, and the GitHub is virtual economy slash v dash systems.
Okay.
And so the GitHub is going to be, the primary space for any developers to go to learn more about the project. My email, my business email is davidj@v.systems. I'm happy to hop on a
Cool.
call with any developers, any projects, anyone who I call shopping for a blockchain. One of my main jobs at Steam was to do a lot of that developer outreach support,
Okay.
and I would come across dozens of projects that were out what I call shopping for a blockchain, looking for a platform to build on. So happy to take any of those calls and walk people through the V Systems ecosystem. Also, we could pull in some of our technical associates if the call gets a little in depth. So super happy to take any of those calls.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for that. And I've been trying to end all these calls with a quick 3-question lightning round, just for you personally. So if you had to pick one project other than your own, of course, that you're really excited about, what would it be?
MadeSafe. Are you familiar with MadeSafe?
Not familiar,
MadeSafe.
but I'll look it up.
MadeSafe. Technically, they were the first ICO ever. If
Mhm.
you don't count Mastercoin, because MadeSafe did the ICO on Mastercoin,
Right.
and then that changed to Omni.
Yeah.
Um, so this was back in the early days in 2013. Kind of the smart contract meta token layers built on Bitcoin.
Interesting.
And VSafe or MadeSafe, they're building like a new internet, and everyone says that,
Yeah.
but they've been working on this for 13 years. I've followed the whole thing. I've read every update, every dev update every week. So I would say
Cool.
I would say MadeSafe is kind of the one I'm holding out for.
Awesome. I'll look it up. That's interesting. Definitely. What my next question is, and this is, I've gotten interesting answers from people that do, but do you use a VPN on your day to day? And if you do, what's your go to platform or offer?
At the moment, I don't use one on the day to day basis, but I
Mhm.
have used private internet access in the past. And then I
Okay.
was playing around. I saw Proton Mail had a VPN, and I was playing around with that a little bit.
Yeah.
It messes up some stuff in the Google Chrome browser and doesn't let
Yeah.
you go to certain pages and stuff. So I usually end up turning it off and then uninstalling it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I've been
But
very curious.
XVPN is our partnership with vSystems. So I'm going to say XVPN.
Cool. I dig that, man. You've got your responsibilities. Definitely. And then my final question is for you personally, what's been your crowning achievement in your belief for your time in the crypto space?
My crowning achievement. Um, re- well, the job at Steam, it was amazing.
Mhm.
I helped Steam get listed on all the on some of the exchanges in the early days. I helped Steam get listed on Binance and BitThumb
Mhm.
and Huobi, and that was a really exciting job. But maybe personally, my crowning achievement is I put a little bit of money into the Ethereum crowd sale, and so I got a
Awesome.
couple of Ethereum tokens for 31 cents each.
Not bad. It's not a bad trade, man. Awesome. Yeah, and I know those questions are often obscure and difficult to think of, but thanks for being a sport.
Of course.
Cool, man. So thanks again for coming on the show. And got to talk about a lot of cool stuff, and I'm very interested to see what folks in the audience have to say, and I'll forward along any interesting questions that I get from commenters, and we can get those answered too if you're cool with that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, look forward to staying in touch, and thanks so much for your time.
Awesome, definitely. So take care of yourself, man, and we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Cheers.